Hey everybody, this is Dimmick Robertson and Cal Burgess, and we are with CustomInsured. And a little quick background on who CustomInsured is. We're a health insurance brokerage, and really what our goal and our deal is that we've created a new level of coverage, something we're calling Health Insurance 2.0. And the idea with this coverage is to eliminate a lot of the legacy issues that small businesses and self-employed individuals are dealing with when it comes to health insurance. A big part of our platform is education. Obviously, we're doing this video for those that are watching, or a podcast for those that are listening. So, education is a big part of what we do. We create podcast videos. We want to teach people these concepts and put out as much content as we can. So we'll get a little bit more into the company, as we kind of go through here. But first and foremost, let me kind of give Cal an opportunity to talk and, tell a little bit about kind of who we're speaking to here with what we do and what we offer.
All right. Well, thanks, Dimmick. Well said. Just to echo on what he's saying, we've designed Health Insurance 2.0 to address a lot of these ongoing issues that small businesses have seen over the last decade. If you remember, all this started back in 2010, so it's been quite some time for a lot of these what we refer to as legacy issues, how they are ongoing. So essentially, we're speaking to different people out there. In other words, there's certain demographics that we can help out and show them viable solutions to what they have in place, and those are small businesses, typically from 2 to 3 employees, all the way to 30 employees or less, of course. These are the small business, or the size of small businesses that are really being exposed the most. They're the ones with hit with the highest renewal rates, which we'll get into later on. And it's very difficult to sustain those price increases or those premium increases over the years. So we want to show how to really stabilize those. And then we also want to talk to self-employed individuals or subcontractors. Maybe there's a small family business that we can show you how to minimize your premium exposure, lower your deductibles. And of course, again, subcontractors. What's great about subcontractors and the family businesses that we work with is that you're not going to be pigeonholed through health insurance, or the exchange or healthcare.gov. You're going to have PPO options instead of just a couple of doctors available through an HMO. So we can find viable PPO options for family businesses, families that are just self-employed, that don't use the business to pay their premium, and of course, subcontractors.
So kind of the common thread of the groups that we can help are the smaller groups. And the reason is because smaller groups have a much larger exposure to these issues that are going on. The big companies of thousands or even hundreds, that things really haven't changed a whole lot for them. So, what it is kind of going on, what are some of the trends that we're helping people to address and kind of talking about? Let's take a look here a little bit at the stats. So, Cal, you kind of touched on it a minute ago, that the cost, that's probably the number one issue for small businesses are the big renewal premiums. Would you agree with that? Or just the cost for PPO coverage anymore?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of small businesses can see a renewal coming around on the second or third year by anywhere from 15 to 25%, depending on what kind of a claim they had to experience. So a company of 10 employees, it can be quite expensive if one of the employees becomes sick, because you only have 9 other sets of premium that are trying to offset that cost.
Well, part of what stinks too is you never get away from that exposure either, right? I mean, think of that business that you're just working with right now. How long have they had their same plan? It was like 20 years, wasn't it? And it was going well, and then just 1 year out of the blue, right?
Oh, it was a company out of Houston, and they have been with their group health plan for some time. I mean, for several years now. They did change it once or twice in the past, but they've had the same type of plan for as long as they can remember. and even their plan was grandfathered in, which should have gave all the protections against all these rising premiums. That wasn't the case. There's one up as well. So we were able to go in there, just basically show a few different options for the employees. In this case, there was those who were on Medicare, and a group health plan that for employees over 65 is almost always much more expensive that way. And then, of course, the under 65 market, where there was employees that just wanted regular coverage moving forward, and there was other employees that wanted maternity. So we're able to construct the perfect coverage for them and save them quite a bit of premium moving forward, which is relief that they hadn't seen in years.
Yeah, so ultimately it was a customized approach, which, again, that's the whole way that we go about it. And for those of you that can kind of see the numbers here, on the cost of a PPO plan, average family PPO plan is, $18,000 to $20,000 a year, and the employers are covering a big portion of that. But the cost, it's so extreme. Not only the cost, what do we got? The deductibles too. So, on the other hand, yeah, people may have coverage or think they have good coverage, and then when they have to actually go to use it, the average employee, who has $3,500 to just come up to cover their health insurance deductible. The average person doesn't. That's another big burden too, right? One of the things that we do with the coverage and the approach that we take is to try to eliminate or even minimize at least these deductibles. But just another issue, you got huge premiums, big deductibles. You have any kind of input or commentary on that of your own, Cal?
What we're seeing a lot with these smaller companies or small businesses is that their deductibles are going up steadily, over the last 5 or 7 years, usually with the same percentages their premiums going up. So, that example you gave of a $3,500 deductible, that's on the low end. There's a lot of, like a silver plan, you could have a $7,000 deductible or out-of-pocket maximum of over $9,000. And most employees simply just don't have that. And the employers are being forced to take these high deductible plans to, again, try to offset that exposure of those rising premiums, which have gone up about 71%. So,
and then on top of all that, let's take a minute to talk about the whole, HMO versus PPO. For the sake of savings and cutting costs, a lot of companies are going to HMO plans. For those of you out there that don't know the distinction, the PPO plans is really what you want. It gives you access to any facility, any provider, whereas an HMO plan is more limited. It's a lower cost in exchange, but you have a list of providers you can go to, and if you're outside of the network, you're on your own. So, how many more companies are going to HMO plans just, again, for the sake of saving, and people are having to change their doctors, right? I mean, we hear those stories all the time.
One of the advantages that we bring to the table is that we can sit down with that subcontractor now and say, hey, you don't have to go to healthcare.gov. You're not forced to take on that HMO or that HMO network where you're going to have access to maybe 2 or 3 specialists within Central Texas. And of course, usually nowhere else allowed outside of those couple of specialists, where we can upgrade that subcontractor and give them a dual PPO network that extends nationwide, hundreds of thousands of different options if and when the time ever comes. And that's a game changer. And then on top of that, be able to lower their premium where they were in an HMO plan and turn all that into a PPO plan for a lower premium. So that's kind of the power of, customizing these plans the way they are.
And ultimately, kind of, where are we here in the market? These traditional plans that have been around for decades and decades. Well, everything changed in 2010. When Obamacare was introduced, for better or worse, it changed the market. You have an outside force pushing on a market. So something abnormal is going to happen, which are all these things that we're talking about. So these traditional plans, their package is kind of a one size fits all. Ultimately, it doesn't really end up fitting most people. They're trying to cram coverage people into plans that, again, it doesn't work for most people, and kind of a new approach is needed. So that's where we came up with the whole concept of this health insurance 2.0.
This is a reoccurring pattern that we were seeing in the field for years. We would drive out to as far as Houston to run appointments, to all the way down to Corpus Christi, back down to way South Texas, all across the, almost every direction. And we started meeting with a lot of people and started seeing, consistencies of what was happening. So, that's what gave us the direction to start this all up. And of course, there was a change of regulation as well. So part of what was happening is that these plans have always been there, like Dimmick was saying, before the Affordable Health Care Act. They were just, in certain areas that isn't really prevalent for group health plans. So they may be out in the rural areas or the outskirts of cities, or, within smaller towns. So these plans have always been there. It just wasn't until recently that they saw these surge of premium increases from the Affordable Health Care Act plans that everyone started looking for relief. Well, truth be told, we weren't able to really offer these plans until January of 2019, when they lowered the tax mandate penalty down to $0, which gives us all the power that we have today to be able to offer viable alternatives for small businesses. Prior to that, you risked a big penalty if you were to make any moves. Now all that's off the table. So our goal was to try to echo this message as loud as we could, saying, hey, there are solutions if you customize these plans and show how, all the moving parts come together, and how it lowers your out-of-pocket expense, and it lowers your premiums, and it gives you the dual PPO plans, whether you're a family, an individual, or a small business. So that's where a lot of this, through that change of regulation into what we were seeing with other people out, in the field and, the outskirts of town, or maybe even in the rural areas, that was a lot of the message we were hearing, and that's where all this came from. And that's where we started educating everyone, creating that podcast, bringing everyone up to speed about how you can customize your solutions, control your renewal rates, and actually give the employee what they deserve from day one as a true benefit. Now, when you're changing plans from carrier to carrier every single year, it actually is almost like a burden out there. We want to reverse this. We want the employees to realize that they have a true benefit, and how all that comes together, and of course, integrated to give you several options within the pandemic.
So yeah, we've definitely come a long way, from knocking doors, so to speak, in rural, small town Texas, where we are, to developing and building this approach, and recognizing what's going on, to now focusing on small businesses, as you mentioned earlier, even up to 30 people. And a big part of it is, really what we try to do with our coverage is to sell concepts. So by that we mean, lower no deductible. That's a pretty straightforward concept. PPO network, so you can go to any doctor. Low copays. All these things, to where the idea is that we mix and match the coverage to fulfill these concepts, which allows us to kind of build things from the ground up, versus the traditional solutions where really, when you look between all the companies, how much difference is there really? If you're looking between all the big boys, their plans are pretty much the same, and the pricing is pretty much the same, and the limited options you have are pretty much the same. So, and Cal also was touching there on the employees. Now that we have kind of transitioned more on the small business mindset, the employees are, of course, front and center. And something else that we're always keeping in mind here is, what kind of impact is health coverage having on the employees? And for those of those of you that can see the video here, we have a little graph showing, I think everybody out there knows what wages have been like, right? It's been fairly stagnant in the past several years, but certain costs keep going up, don't they? And health insurance being there right at the top of the line. So, that's a big part of what drives us is, if we can lower the company's premiums, they can effectively give their employees a raise, Not only that, but if we can set up coverage that has no deductible or very low deductible, people don't have a huge exposure, if and when they actually have to use that coverage. You got any kind of commentary you want to throw in on that, Cal?
Yeah, absolutely. So another way to look at all what Dimmick is talking about is that the plans have become very generic today. They were never intended to be that way, but right off the bat, when Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act started in 2010, the claims were through the roof. So these increasing costs created kind of a ripple effect, so to speak, and a lot of these plans became, very, very generic. You took what Dimmick said earlier to his point of there's not much transparency between one company or another when you're dealing with these type of plans. And it's true. I mean, if you think about it, the only difference between a bronze plan and a gold plan is the size of the deductible and the size of the premium. Outside of that, they're pretty much identical. So there's no maneuvering. All you can do is, shift the weight over to the deductible, or you shift the weight back over to the premium, and there's
You
no
can't
give and
customize,
take.
right? We always use the example of the kid that has pregnancy coverage, right? On those
Kind of cut up the
traditional plan,
discussion.
people have their dependents on their plan, right? And with the one size fits all plan, coverage is included for pregnancy coverage is included for everybody, even the kids. Why would they need to pay for that extra coverage? Or even 20 somethings aren't, they're not getting colonoscopies and things like that. Why should they have coverage that has benefits that they're not going to use or need? I mean, it pushes the cost up, and just it bloats the whole process. And that's why those plans, one of the reasons why those plans don't work for a lot of people.
This is true. Yeah. So, you made the point about the dependent. Taking a closer look at that, if you have a 12-year-old male dependent, there's no need whatsoever to have maternity coverage on that. You can instead take that credit and pat it towards a deductible requirement, or help pull the premiums down. So there's about a dozen or so ways to structure the coverage based on what the employees need, and that's where the true benefit of that health insurance 2.0 comes from.
Right, the whole customization, right? That's what it's all about. Building the coverage based on the company or the individual versus shoehorning everyone into a one size fits all package. And another thing that we kind of mentioned earlier, that a big component of what we do is the education. I mean, we believe that it's all well and good to have great coverage, but if you don't understand how to use it, or you can't really maximize the benefits. And especially when it comes to health insurance, there's a million questions and a million things that most people don't ever want to have to learn. So that's why we're doing what we do. Also, to the extent we're showing you here our homepage. We have a lot of great info and content on here. We have podcasts, videos, YouTube page, all that good stuff. But one thing that we've really done, also for the sake of transparency too, is we have an online quote engine right on our website. As far as we know, this is not something you can get anywhere else. So if you're an individual or even a small group, you can go right on our website and get a quote within just a few minutes, 2 minutes on average. You have the plans listed here. You go through, and it'll spit out a price at the end. If you like the price you see, you can set the coverage up right through the site. So, we want to try to make it as seamless. And these days people want to be able to do things easier, and people, a lot of people don't relish human interaction as much as others. So, just another way that we're trying to, we're bringing health insurance into the 21st century. We do have a bunch of other podcasts and videos that we're going to follow up with this one. So just before we kind of sign off, Kai, you have any kind of parting comments or any commentary you want to put out there for people?
Yeah. So, just kind of telling off on what Dimmick said, we wanted to put our best foot forward, and we wanted to show you how our premiums compare to what you're paying. When you open up those schedules of coverage and you take a look at them, it'll be pretty evident the difference in quality right off the bat. So it has to do with how it's structured from the ground up. You can't put a person who's 60 years old in the same type of a policy, for someone who's, say, 19 or 18 years old. They don't need the same things. And we want to make sure that they both have great coverage, but it needs to be structured to what your needs are.
So for those of y'all out there that have listened or watched, we do very much appreciate the time. Hopefully we were able to provide you some enlightenment, or that hopefully we are able to provide you some enlightenment. Again, we want to try to help people, just show them the options, and just put as much content as we can. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. We have our contact info here at the top of the page. You can also email us at support@custominsured.com. That's all for now. We'll sign off there, and we'll look forward to talking to you guys again on the next one.